Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Talking to the Void. I'm your friendly neighborhood host, and today we're continuing the series, The Death of the MCU, with the second warning sign. In case you missed the first two episodes, I am currently releasing a series about why I have fallen out of love with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and why I think they've screwed up their future as a franchise. If you haven't watched the first two episodes, I'd highly recommend viewing them before this one, as this is a series that builds up my argument for why the MCU is currently in dire straits. Now, without further ado, let's discuss the issues with Captain America Civil War, or, as I think of it, Warning Sign Part 2. The second warning sign that the MCU was getting messed up was Captain America Civil War. Don't get me wrong, I really like this movie, and getting heroes to fight each other when they used to be on the same side is an excellent dynamic in my opinion. However, I think it could have been done better. As much as I love Bucky and wish he had more screen time, I don't think he should have been made the focus of the conflict. The thing that started the rift in the Avengers was the Sokovia Accords, and the idea that the Avengers would have to submit to government oversight and control, which would potentially limit their ability to do their jobs as heroes. Iron Man recognized the destruction that had occurred as a result of the Avengers doing their jobs, and thought that some government oversight would be good. Captain America, while not thrilled about the destruction the Avengers had inadvertently caused, had also by this point seen the corruption within the government, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and didn't want the corrupt government to prevent the Avengers from doing their jobs. The rest of the Avengers then either sided with Iron Man or with Captain America. I personally would have liked this film to explore each side's views a little bit more, and to have focused on the conflict of ideals, rather than ultimately making it about how Bucky killed Iron Man's parents as the Winter Soldier, and then Iron Man understandably retaliating. While Bucky definitely had a place in that film, and I like the drama of the fight over Bucky between Iron Man and Captain America at the end of the film, I think Bucky took precedence over the Sokovia Accords a little too much and too early in the film. The importance of the Sokovia Accords was overshadowed by Bucky being framed for the assassination of King T'Chaka, and once that happened, the Accords were more or less forgotten. I believe the film would have benefited from better integrating the conflict with Bucky with the conflict over the Sokovia Accords, rather than transitioning the conflict from the Accords to Bucky. I think it would still be appropriate to make Bucky the focus towards the end of the film, after Iron Man discovers that the Winter Soldier killed his parents, but up until that point, in my opinion, the focus should still have been the political side of things rather than the personal. So now you might be wondering, why do I consider this the second warning sign? Why do I think that the MCU screwed up here? Well, in the comics, in the original Civil War comics, the focus is more on the Sokovia Accords themselves. It is the conflict of ideals between Iron Man and Captain America that results in said Civil War. They did not stay as true to that as I think they should have or could have in this film. And by making it about characters instead, they lost an important part, or rather, they lost an important opportunity to explore Iron Man and Captain America's views, and also the views of the Avengers who sided with either one. It was a really interesting, in my opinion, conflict of ideals that showed a lot about the characters and what matters to them. So, as an example, Iron Man was confronted by that woman at the beginning of the film because her son had died as a result of the Avengers attempting to save the city. Okay? And so he was overwhelmed with, this feeling of, oh gosh, we screwed up. We led to the death of this innocent person, and it hits him really hard, and that's a big part of his reasoning in wanting to agree to and sign the Sokovia Accords. Now, Captain America obviously values human lives and stuff just as much as anybody else on the Avengers, if not more, arguably. And yet he is on the side of not signing the Sokovia Accords because of his recent experience in the film Captain America the Winter Soldier, in which he saw the corruption within the government itself and therefore developed a distrust of them, which led him to consider the potential that if they signed the Sokovia Accords, the Avengers could, in essence, be abused by the government and prevented from doing their jobs, all because the government itself is corrupt. So what I really like about this is that, unlike a lot of other Marvel films where there is one clear good guy and one clear bad guy, if that makes sense. There's no truly right or wrong person in this situation, hence why there was the whole argument of Team Iron Man versus Team Captain America, and it's still something people talk about nowadays. But I like the fact that nobody is truly right or wrong. They just each have their own different views, and ultimately their inability to reconcile that leads them to come to blows. However, um, in this movie, people come to blows more over Bucky rather than the Sokovia Accords, and the plot of the Sokovia Accords is more or less forgotten. I think the film would have benefited from integrating Bucky's plight of being framed with the Sokovia Accords, maybe showing how the corruption within the government relates to Bucky's plight, and how signing the Sokovia Accords would have caused more problems for people like Bucky who are innocent but were being targeted because of their past, etc. I don't have one clear single answer to how this could have been done better, because I understand that they don't want to frame anybody as strictly right or strictly wrong, but I think that there was nuance that they could have explored there, and ways in which they could have integrated Bucky's plight with that nuance. And I've now said the phrase Bucky's plight like 4 times. But I just think that things could have been integrated better, because they had two storylines that ended up intersecting before one took over the other one, and I think that it would have been better if those storylines could coexist for the most part during that movie, rather than the whole bit surrounding Bucky ultimately taking over the film and being the thing that leads to the final fight at the end of the film, if that makes sense. That was a bit of a rambly explanation of what I think they should have done differently and why I think this was a problem. Not that I think the deviation from the comics is bad, or that having their own unique take on it is bad, but the integration of various parts of the story was not well done here, and to me signaled that something was kind of going on here that was not being addressed. Basically, that um, Marvel was kind of failing a little bit in the writing department, and that was going to come back to haunt them later, which it does, and I will be getting into that in future episodes of this series. So that is all for episode 3 of my series, The Death of the MCU. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please like this video and consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss my upcoming videos in this series. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Sending you all the love.